I'm watching the unemployment data scroll across my screen right now, and the numbers coming out of California tell a story that nobody in Sacramento wants you to see. December 2025. More than 1 million Californians without work. The unemployment rate sitting at 5.5%, tied with Nevada as the worst in America. And here's what makes this different from every economic slowdown you've seen before. This one's been building for 19 consecutive months, while the governor stood at podiums talking about California being the world's fourth largest economy. Let me show you what's actually happening on the ground. The Employment Development Department just released December's data, and it confirms what workers have been feeling in their bones since early 2024. The state lost another 1,700 jobs in December. That might sound small until you realize it's the exclamation point on a brutal year where California led the entire nation in job cuts. Not just led, dominated. Over 175,000 jobs erased in 2025 alone, more than any other state except Washington, D.C. The Bay Area, once the golden child of American innovation, shed 20,000 jobs for the year. 20,000 families wondering how they'll make rent in one of the most expensive regions on Earth. Now here's where this gets interesting, and this is the part they're not explaining in press releases. California's unemployment insurance fund, the safety net that's supposed to catch people when they fall, is $20 billion in debt to the federal government. $20 billion. That's not a typo. It's a number so large that businesses across California are now paying higher federal unemployment taxes to cover the interest on loans the state took out during COVID and never paid back. Every single California employer is essentially subsidizing the state's mismanagement, and that cost gets passed down in ways you feel even if you've never filed for unemployment. Fewer raises, slower hiring, businesses looking at Texas or Arizona and doing the math. Let me walk you through what should exist if the state was being honest about this crisis. First, there should be a detailed plan from the governor's office explaining how California will repay that $20 billion debt. Not vague promises, an actual payment schedule. Second, there should be monthly reports showing which industries are hemorrhaging jobs and what specific policies are being adjusted in response. Third, and this is crucial, there should be transparent data on where unemployment is hitting hardest by county, by demographic, by sector, updated in real time so communities can prepare. None of that exists. What we get instead are press conferences celebrating California's GDP while over 1 million people can't find work. The tech sector tells you everything you need to know about where this is heading. Meta just announced layoffs of 272 workers in California, most of them in the Bay Area. Autodesk cut 1,000 jobs. These aren't small startups folding. These are titans of industry making calculated decisions that California is no longer the place to build. And they're being replaced by what? The only sector showing consistent growth is private education and health services, which added jobs in December. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Those jobs pay a fraction of what disappeared from tech. A software engineer making $180,000 a year doesn't seamlessly transition into a $55,000 home health aide position. The math doesn't work for mortgages, car payments, or keeping kids in California schools. If this pattern continues, and every indicator suggests it will, here's what the cascade looks like. More tech workers leave for Austin, Denver, Miami. California's tax base, which relies heavily on high earners, shrinks further. The state faces bigger budget deficits, which means either cuts to services or tax increases on whoever's left. That pushes more businesses out, more unemployment, deeper debt. It's a cycle that doesn't stop until someone in power admits there's a structural problem and does something radical to fix it. Now contrast that with what you're being told. Governor Newsom spent the end of 2025 positioning himself as a presidential contender, flying to international forums, picking fights with the incoming administration. Meanwhile, back home, unemployment claims are being processed for 359,565 Californians in the September sample week. That's just 1 week. Multiply that across months, and you start to understand the scale. These aren't numbers, they're people. Parents explaining to kids why they can't afford soccer camp this year. Recent college grads with crushing student debt and no entry-level positions. Mid-career professionals who did everything right and got blindsided by AI replacing their entire department. Here's the question nobody's asking. Who actually benefits from keeping unemployment high? Follow the money. When there are more workers than jobs, wages stay flat. Employers have leverage. People accept worse conditions, fewer benefits, longer hours, because the alternative is joining that pool of 1.1 million jobless Californians. There's an economic theory that a certain level of unemployment is necessary to control inflation, to keep workers from having too much bargaining power. I'm not saying California engineered this, but I am saying that when solutions are this slow to materialize, you have to wonder who's comfortable with the status quo. Let's talk about what the data actually shows versus what we're being sold. Official unemployment rate, 5.5%, but that only counts people actively looking for work. It doesn't count the workers who gave up after 6 months of applications going nowhere. It doesn't count the gig economy refugees stringing together 3 part-time jobs with no benefits. It doesn't count underemployment, people with master's degrees working retail because that's all that's available. The real number of Californians struggling economically is significantly higher than 1.1 million. Some economists estimate the true pain is double the official figure. California led the nation in job losses in 2025. Let that sink in. The state that's supposed to be the innovation capital of the world, the place where the future gets built, led America in people losing their livelihoods, and the losses weren't evenly distributed. Professional and business services shed 10,400 jobs in September alone. Manufacturing down 4,500. Trade, transportation, and utilities lost 8,700. These are the backbone industries, the ones that employ millions of Californians who aren't venture capitalists or movie producers. Here's what's particularly maddening. The Bay Area unemployment data shows San Francisco lost 4,500 tech jobs in 2025, despite all the AI boom headlines. Think about that contradiction. Every tech conference, every earnings call, every startup pitch is about artificial intelligence revolutionizing everything. And yet the region that invented AI is shedding tech jobs. That tells you the revolution isn't creating opportunity for workers. It's consolidating wealth at the top while eliminating middle-class positions at scale. Now, I want to be clear about what we can and can't confirm. We know the unemployment rate is 5.5%. We know over 1.1 million Californians are jobless. We know the state's unemployment fund is $20 billion in debt. Those are hard numbers from official state and federal sources. What we can't confirm is whether the governor has a plan that he's keeping private or whether there's genuinely no plan at all. We can't confirm how many Californians have stopped looking for work entirely and therefore disappeared from the statistics. We can't confirm exactly how many businesses have quietly decided to expand elsewhere instead of California, though we know some big names have left. If you're trying to make sense of why this is happening now, look at the convergence of factors. COVID decimated the unemployment insurance fund. The federal government loaned California $20 billion to keep benefits flowing. The state never repaid it, and interest keeps accruing. Simultaneously, tech companies overhired during the pandemic boom and are now correcting with massive layoffs. AI is accelerating that trend by automating roles faster than new ones are being created. High costs of living mean businesses face pressure to relocate to cheaper states. And California's regulatory environment, whether you think it's necessary or burdensome, adds expenses that competitors don't face. Every hour this debt grows, California businesses pay more in federal unemployment taxes. Every month, the unemployment rate stays elevated, more workers burn through savings and fall into deeper financial holes. Every quarter that passes without significant job growth, California's reputation as the place to build your career erodes further. These aren't distant future problems. They're compounding right now, while attention is focused on political theater instead of economic fundamentals. Let me give you one more lens on this. Compare California to states with lower unemployment. Texas sits at 4.1%, Florida at 3.3%, Utah at 2.9%. What do they have in common? Lower taxes, less regulation, cheaper housing, and aggressive recruitment of businesses leaving California. You can argue about whether those are better places to live, whether quality of life matters more than tax rates, but you can't argue with the employment data. People are working there. Here, over 1 million aren't. The accountability question is straightforward. 3 entities should be publishing data and solutions right now. The governor's office needs to release a comprehensive economic recovery plan with measurable targets. The Employment Development Department needs to provide detailed breakdowns of which communities are suffering most and where retraining programs are being deployed. And the state legislature needs to hold public hearings on the unemployment insurance debt and present options for repayment that don't crush small businesses. None of that is happening at the scale this crisis demands. Here's what I'm tracking going forward, and I'll update you as information comes in. First, whether unemployment claims continue rising or finally plateau. Second, which industries, if any, start hiring again in meaningful numbers. Third, how the $20 billion debt gets addressed in budget negotiations. And fourth, whether any major companies announce they're staying in or returning to California, because that would signal something's changed. Right now, the trend lines all point the same direction, and it's not encouraging. I built this platform on verification, on showing you the documents and data, not just my interpretation of them. So here's how we track this together. If you're in California, I need you in the comments. Tell me your county and whether you're seeing hiring in your industry or more layoffs. Don't speculate, just report what you're witnessing in your local economy. If you've been job hunting, how long has your search lasted? If you're employed, is your company expanding, contracting, or frozen? This isn't about doom and gloom. It's about building a real-time picture of what's happening beyond the official statistics. And if you're watching this from Sacramento, if you're a staffer or an elected official, understand that we're paying attention now. The data's out there. The unemployment numbers, the debt figures, the job loss rankings, they're all public record. The question is, what gets done about it? Because 19 months of rising unemployment isn't a blip, it's a trend. And trends don't reverse themselves without intervention. California can either face this crisis head on, or it can keep pretending everything's fine while workers leave and businesses follow. The clock's ticking, the debt's growing, and over 1 million Californians are waiting for answers that should have come months ago.